All right. I don't see anyone else in the waiting room at the moment, but people can just jump in. Um, but wanted to thank everyone for joining today's virtual Q&A session with the couple members of the GWiB border here. We're so excited to have you all on campus next year. Let me switch to the next slide. So the way we were thinking we'll run through today's session is we have Kat and Megha, the two co-presidents of GWiB, and then Dulguun and myself were the VPs of admissions. The four of us can give a quick intro on ourselves. And then Kat and Megha are going to talk about GWiB a little bit, some of the club's initiatives, and then we'll turn it over to you guys. You can ask any questions, whether it's GWiB specific, Georgetown related, we'll answer anything. So feel free to jump off mute or pop questions into the chat whenever you'd like. But I think, Kat, do you want to get things kicked off? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. And it's so funny the number of times that as like business students, we have to do a little like, tell me about
I
yourself.
know.
And I'm never ready to tell anyone about myself. So it's always off the cuff and off the dome. But
It's
hi,
going to be great.
everyone. Well, we'll see. Again, hi, everyone. It's really awesome that y'all joined us. We really appreciate y'all taking time out of your day to come talk with us. And we hope that this is a very kind of casual experience for y'all. Like everything is so structured when you like have to talk with like MBA admissions officers and whatever else. So this is very casual. We just want to make sure that you have the information that you need to feel prepared when you come in the fall, and hopefully all of y'all are coming in the fall. Um, so to feel prepared and to feel supported, because I think that's what we really want to continue to build GWiB out to be, is a really supportive environment. But yeah, I'm Katarina. I'm one of the co-presidents. Megha was the one who asked, like, "Hey, we should do this," and I was like, "Oh, if you say so." So it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun, and it's really great to be able to have, this network of women at Georgetown. There's not a ton of us, especially in the full-time program, so we have to make sure we're continuing to be there to support one another. And I'm always happy to meet new students. We have, if have any questions at all, please just send them our way, put them in the chat, come off of mute. Again, it's really casual. Um, and I forgot to tell you about myself. Again, Katarina, first year, full-time, co-president, from Texas. If anyone's from Texas, I love food and hiking. And again, whatever. It's really nice to meet y'all though.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kat. You did an amazing job as always. So it's fun to go after you. So yeah, it's so nice to see all of you here. A little bit about me, again, co-president full time. I'm from India, from Kerala. It's like the southernmost part of India, if no one knows where that is. So I am basically, prior to my MBA, worked in, I have an architecture background. So I did a little bit of that, went into hospitality and also startups. So if you have any questions on what it is to have someone with a very non-traditional background come into the MBA, I can maybe help answer some of those questions. And yeah, something that I love, again, very similar to Kat, food. And just, I love the whole art and culture scene in DC, and that's one of the reasons why I came here. So again, co-president of GWiB. I think this has just been so amazing to do initiatives and build that community here. So happy to answer any questions that you have about that as well.
Thanks, Megha. Nice to meet everyone. I'm Sophie. I was born and raised in the DC area, and I actually did my undergraduate degree at Georgetown as well. So, have spent a lot of time at Georgetown and can answer any questions about DC because I've spent many, many years here. And I absolutely love it. Going back to get my MBA at McDonough was an absolute no-brainer for me. Because I had such a lovely experience in my undergrad time here. So I was like, I have to go back. And I graduated from Georgetown undergrad. I was actually in the College of Arts and Sciences. Thought I was going to go and do marketing and somehow ended up in investment banking in New York. worked at a boutique firm there, and I kid you not, I was the only female. They were basically on a mission to hire a woman. They were like, we have to. And that was a very eye-opening experience for me. So I was very excited to join GWiB because I am a huge advocate for women working in male-dominated industries, and I love getting to be surrounded by such fabulous women at school. So joined the club. I'm one of the VPs of admissions, and I am also the co-president of the consulting club. If anyone's thinking about going into consulting, feel free to send me a note. But so excited you guys are here. I'm trying to think about something fun about myself. I'm obsessed with my dog. Everyone knows about Rosie. And I'm like so tempted to say food because I too am a foodie. But what else do I like? I love to play tennis. I'm just getting back into it with members of Megha, Kat, and actually we're all in the same cohort. I'm like with the people in our cohort. We have a couple of tennis players, so that's been fun getting back into it, especially now that the weather's nice. But excited you guys are all here.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dulguun. I was born and raised in Mongolia. For those who are not familiar, it's a country located between Russia and China. I came to the DC area to do my undergrad at the University of Maryland. I technology, specifically tech recruiting for a while, which was my main reason to join GWiB at McDonough, because as Sophie mentioned, working at male-dominated industries, you kind of crave that female connection and to be connected with to other women. I was just telling my husband earlier, I attended one of these events last year, exactly in April, and got admitted and started school. And the second years now that I met last year, who were first years at a time, I've become very close with during our recruiting seasons. They also help me case and prep for interviews. So I hope we also can get that connection out of today's meeting as well. Everyone here, my friends here who happen to be on the same club, at GWiB, are very friendly, and we're happy to answer any questions. Fun fact, it's kind of, I guess, my personality now that I got married a couple of months ago, and I live with my husband and my dog, and we'll be moving to Seattle for the summer, and we're very excited for a cross-country trip. So I'm happy to answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Kat and Megha, do you guys want to give a quick overview of the club, some of the things that we'll be doing in the fall?
Yeah, absolutely. I can take that one. So again, GWiB is, as Kat mentioned, it's really all about creating that strong, supportive, and empowering community for women at McDonough. And for us, I think it's very important that, our events are not just checking the boxes, but we try to be as intentional and inclusive as we can. So this year we have hosted a range of events. We've had, some thought-provoking conversations to some community building events as well. I think one of the most standout events was our Safe Bubble conversation. It was a Safe Bubble panel where we collaborated with a couple of other clubs to bring 5 really amazing, badass women from STEM, tech, policy backgrounds. And these are women who've thrived in male-dominated spaces. And just hearing their stories about mentorship, resilience, and how they've really created that space for themselves was incredibly inspiring. So that's something that we did. And we've had another event for Women's History Month, because we wanted to do something that's both fun and meaningful. So we hosted this trivia night at Hilltop, with questions spanning women's rights, achievements, and pop culture. And I think that was a great event as well. And we do some small community-driven activities. For example, on Valentine's Day, our community team came together to do a very cute friendship bracelet and candygram table right outside Connolly Commons. It was a very sweet but simple way for people to just step out of their busy schedules and spread some love and kindness. And what's coming up is what we're super excited about, which is the GWiB conference in the fall. That's one of our biggest events. We'll be doing more small events as well in the fall. But for this conference, the planning is already underway. Our conference team is bringing alumni from different parts of not just a diversity in terms of where they're from, but also different industries, from startups to consulting. So they'll be talking about everything from navigating today's climate, today's workforce, and it's one of the most inspiring events of the year. And it's honestly a great opportunity to network, learn, and feel energized about what's ahead. So if you'll be joining us in the fall, this is a great event to look forward to. And yeah, is there anything else you want to add, Kat, to that?
So I guess this is also a little outside of events that we do, but just in terms of timeline, in terms of fall, I know one of the main questions that I get asked when I talk to prospective students is, I want to be in a leadership position. What does that leadership timeline look like? And so typically what happens is you start at Georgetown, you have the orientation, which happens like not only orientation and then opening term, and it's 3 weeks that happen in August. And then I think at the end of August or like early September is when the club fair is. And I think I know my strategy going into it was I have to pay club dues and I don't have a job anymore. So like I got to make sure that I have money for coffee and just coffee, really, coffee and clubs, I guess. So I wanted to make sure I joined one affinity club. So I chose GWiB. I wanted to join one industry club, so I joined the marketing club, and then I wanted to join a fun club, so that was tabletop games. So you'll be able to talk to all the different. We offer so many clubs here at Georgetown. So go in with your strategy, pay your dues, make sure that you ask them, am I going to get my money's worth out of this club? Because again, we don't have jobs anymore. And then in terms of the leadership timeline, that tends to happen in the November, December timeframe when you start to run for a position. You submit an LOI, a letter of intent, and you do a little bit of marketing within the rules that they have for campaigning. And that transition happens between end of December and into January for new leadership. And then one additional thing is that we also offer first year boards. So our conference team, which is 3 members, they need help because the conference is huge. So we bring in a couple first years to help them out. And we also sometimes will have a first year volunteers for the community team because they have to do a bunch of fun stuff and we're all super busy MBA students, but we want to make sure we're providing programming for everyone. So you will have opportunities for leadership and you have opportunities to put things on your resume, which is a big part of it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Okay, I think we can open up to questions. Feel free to jump off mute, put a question in the chat. We're happy to answer any and all questions. It can be about DC, it could be about clubs, it could be about GWiB, it could be about anything you want.
I think oh, here we go. We have a question. I'll read it out loud. Do you have any advice for the MBA interview? I'm guessing they're asking for MBA admissions interview, correct? Okay. I'll start. Yeah, I'll start with that. Actually, I think we have a couple of MBA student admission interviewers here as well. So students are also encouraged to participate in the MBA admissions. Now, I will preface that with we're not solely responsible on deciding who's going to get admitted or not. We don't have that authority, but it is a holistic view of evaluating a candidate. So they will obviously look at the essay, your past experiences, on all of that. Specifically for the MBA interview, I think knowing your story, why MBA, why you decided to pursue your MBA, and then why specifically Georgetown is very, very important. Now, I will give you a hint. The answers I think most people look for or is very liked, I think, in the Georgetown community is one of the principles that are care for others, cura personalis, that we talk about a lot. Not only do you care for yourself, but also for others as a whole, for another person, and really taking care of the community, caring for your coworkers, your friends is very important. Secondly, Georgetown takes a lot of pride in being global, and I promise you that you will get a lot of global experience coming into this program because I believe 49% of our students are international. So when I tell you, when we're sitting in our cohorts, we have so many representations from different countries, and it is one of the most beautiful things. We have potlucks in our cohorts, and we get to taste so many different foods from different countries, and that's very beautiful. And then thirdly, Georgetown being located in DC, where there are representations of Fortune 500 companies, as well as being so close to the government agencies, it's another plus. So that's a little hint that you got today by joining this call that should be helpful for your interview MBA interview admissions. I'll read the question and then I'll have someone else answer. What is it like to live in DC? Maybe Sophie can answer because she's lived here pretty much
I
her
can jump in
entire
on this
life.
one. Yeah, living in DC is wonderful. I spent the last 5 years in New York, and coming to DC feels a little bit like a breath of fresh air. DC is very easy to get around, which I love, whether it's walking, driving, taking the subway, taking the bus, biking, scootering, everything. Like, you can get around super easily. I would say from a like living perspective, I would say students are split pretty 50-50 between living in DC and Virginia, although it might not even be 50-50. I think a lot of people live in Virginia. It's very easy to get over the bridge. I would suggest you guys look in both kind of the Arlington, Roslyn, Clarendon area, as well as all of DC. You can get to campus very easily from wherever you are. So don't feel like you need to be within like a walking distance of campus. It's very easy to get around. And then outside of that, I love DC for a lot of reasons. I love the seasons. Like, I'm not someone who wants to stick in one climate all year long. Like, I like that we have full, like, real seasons here. It gets very cold in the winter. A lot of people ask me, like, how big of a jacket do I need in the winter? I'm like, a big one. It gets cold. And I just think it's such a fun city to explore. There's lots of different neighborhoods, lots of different pockets. I'm very biased. I think Georgetown is just like the prettiest neighborhood. It's all like cobblestone streets and all these old, beautiful houses that you can go walk around and look at. And I think there's just like, there's so much to do and explore there. You have all the museums, you have the National Mall, you have amazing restaurants. Like, there's just so much fun things you can do. Life in DC is never boring, which I love. And compared to New York, everyone I think is just so much nicer. So I absolutely love it. I will like give a plug for, they will send around some sort of like housing guide essentially at some point. I remember them like sending like, here's a list of all the neighborhoods where like the last class lived. The breakdown by like DC versus Virginia. Here's a couple like building suggestions if you're looking for an apartment. And so if anyone has any like housing questions, please ask us. But I think DC is great and you'll all love it.
Thank you, Sophie. All right, we'll go to the next question. I love these questions. Okay, could you please talk more about recruiting and career services? Kat or Megha, would you like to talk about it?
Sure, I can take that one. So for recruiting and career services, so I'm going to CVS this summer. And for me, when I stepped into Georgetown, I was on a path of exploration because, as I mentioned before, I do come from 3 different industries and I was trying to figure out where I would fit in best. And I was looking into consulting, I was looking into tech, I was looking into marketing. So for me, it was the first few months was just going to every career day there is. I'm also part of all clubs. I'm part of the consulting club, the marketing club, the tech club, GWiB. It's a lot. But I think it's been great for me to just understand where I could be able to use some of the skills that I have and where I could enhance my the career that I wanted. So for the Career Center has been super helpful in doing that as well. So once you come into Georgetown, you will have so many events to attend that they can be from panels where you have alumni come in and talk about their experiences. You have workshops happening. So I think these are all very helpful in just sort of understanding and shortlisting exactly what you want. Consulting recruiting, especially, you have your second year step in and sort of help you through the casing journey and coffee chats and what that culture looks like. As you all know, the landscape has now completely changed. It has been, very difficult. The market is, it is hard to find opportunities, but at the same time, you have your career center sort of push for you. They help you with like resume prep and interview prep and things like that. And that's one of the reasons why CBS worked out for me so well. So in terms of recruiting, we have so many opportunities for you to just put yourself out there and learn from. And we also have peer advisors. So your second years will be your peer advisors, where you can reach out to them for any specific job or industry that you're looking at, and you can learn from them as well. So that's been sort of my journey. It's just been a lot of unlearning and learning and trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And yeah, that's how it's been.
Thanks, Megha. And I think I'm going to combine these two questions. And Kat, maybe you can answer. What initiatives or student organizations exist to support, not this one, international students? I can help you too, particularly women from Africa. I'll help you with this question. But the one I would like you to answer is, someone wants to know if it's difficult managing club activities with your academics, specifically in the first year.
So tackling a bit of that first question, I think that one strength of Georgetown is how much it provides a platform for everybody. And a lot of that is done through our clubs. And so again, GWiB is an affinity club. It is a support network for one another. It is not necessarily to try and get an internship. That's not the point of this club. But we hope that we can provide opportunities that, maybe you can connect with someone, or we can provide you with the tools to be able to, as a woman, put yourself in a position where you feel confident enough, or whatever else, to be able to get that internship. But that's not our primary source of what we do. And there's so many clubs here at Georgetown that help with that. So I think one of the big things that we do here is Global Fest, and that is an opportunity for all these different clubs to kind of show off and showcase their culture. So we have these potlucks, we have fashion shows, what they call it, we have dance performances. So we get to showcase our cultures, which is really wonderful. And I went to a Hoya celebration like 2 or 3 weeks ago, which was something that was super brand new for me. So we're constantly sharing with one another. So you should feel hopefully supported in being able to be yourself. But in terms of I think we have is it GABA, Georgetown African Business Alliance. We have LABA, the Latino American Business Alliance. We have SABA, the South African Business Alliance. We have the Japanese Club. We have so many that I can't even keep track of all of them. But I do encourage you to go to the Georgetown webpage and look at all the different groups. But would anyone else on our panel want to address being an international student and kind of the support that you feel at Georgetown?
Yes, everything the names that Kat mentioned, they're all true. They're all existing clubs. Also, if you realize that there's a club missing that you would like to create your own club, there is also an opportunity for you to do so. And every Thursday, there's this event called KEGS, Keeping Everyone at Georgetown Included. What does the S stand for?
Social.
Social.
Okay, KEGS. So every Thursday, there's KEGS. And it is usually, most of the time, sponsored by one of these clubs. So last Thursday, it was FABA, which was the Latin American Business Alliance, and they had tacos and all the toppings, everything. And it's a great opportunity for people to connect, also try out these different foods and know about different cultures and just have fun. And Thursdays are usually the end of our academic week, and Fridays we usually have professional or social events. So it is kind of a nice gathering and ending the week kind of celebration every week. So that's something to look forward to. All right, we have many questions, so we'll move on. Someone asked
Dulguun, do you
specifically,
need me to
Kat.
ask?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you want me to answer that question?
No, it says question to Kat. How do you balance between
Yeah.
many clubs you joined?
So I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I'm probably am on the fewest number of clubs on this panel right here, and I only have a leadership position with GWiB. I am just in the marketing association. I just go to tabletop games. I've got a couple other things, like I'm a student ambassador. I was a pivot program fellow, but I'm on the weekend of what the number of extracurriculars that I'm doing. And it is tough. I'll be honest, it is tough, even with like the only like 3 or 4 little things that I'm doing. But that's something that I think when you get here, you learn is how to prioritize. I know that I prioritize everything as like 5 exclamation points, must have everything done. And I've learned, okay, well, today is a day that I need to knock this task out. This thing is going to have to sit on the back burner for a little bit. You learn to manage your priorities pretty quickly. But you can do it. I promise you can do it. You have that's why we have co-presidents. That's why we have VPs. That's why we have study groups that they put us in, because you have a network that you can lean on to help you go through it.
Yes, and even if you think you can't do it, you will do it. You'll find a way. The next two questions are kind of similar, so maybe I'll have Sophie to answer these. Is there anything you wish you knew pre-joining the Georgetown MBA program, and someone specifically said it could be a good or a bad, just anything that has stuck out to you since you have started?
That's a good question. I think the most surprising part for me, and this is like kind of tied with the last question about balancing, was how many things you have to balance at once. You come from likely a professional career where your day-to-day is your job for a good part of the day, and then you have your life outside of work. When you come to school, it starts so quickly, and you're trying to balance academics and clubs and recruiting and meeting people, and it can feel a little bit overwhelming, and you're like, oh my gosh, like how do I balance all of these things? Like which ones should I give the most attention to? And I think you think about these things maybe at a high level before you come to school, but then when you actually start doing it, you're like, wow, there is a lot on my plate all at once. And it can feel a little bit overwhelming. And that was a little bit of a surprise to me, was how much, in fact, I had to juggle, I think, on a day-to-day basis, and learning how to balance each of those things. And sometimes every day, one of those was a different priority. I think the good surprise for me was you're put into a cohort when you get to business school, and all 4 of us are in the same cohort. So I feel like this is like a very biased comment. We're all in the Hoya cohort. So there's Hoya, blue, gray, and Saxa. And you're put into a cohort, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. You take all of your classes your first year for the most part with your cohort, even your opening term, and your study teams in your cohort. And I was very pleasantly surprised, like how quickly I think you start to become friends with and spend time with your cohort. I remember thinking at first, like, that feels a little odd. Like, wouldn't they want to rotate you around, and like you get to meet people in all the other cohorts? Like, it's a 250 person class. Like, wouldn't you want to meet all these different people? And I'm like, I think I'm obsessed with my cohort, and I don't want to take classes with other people. At this point, I'm kidding. Everyone's lovely, but that was a really pleasant surprise for me, was like how great that cohort model is. I just think it's amazing.
Thank you, Sophie. That's a great answer. I completely agree. The balancing so many things all at once is such a thing. And I remember one of the partners, I think during consulting day last year, has told us like there's different seasons to your life, and things,
Yeah.
priorities can change. And I think that's a true thing. Like during opening term, you're mainly focusing on academics, trying to keep up with social life. And then depending on what industry you're recruiting with, recruiting can be your main focus from either October to January or January to May. and then you're still trying to fit in the social stuff. So there's a lot of time management that's happening there. So Sophie gave you all the right answers. Okay, the next question is for Megha. Megha, I believe you mentioned you have history in architecture. How have you been able to use your design experience within the MBA program?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Honestly, even when I joined the MBA program, I was confused about how I can maybe use some of the skills that I have, like where it would fit in within the program. But I was very surprised because with simple things like design thinking is very big in architecture. It's a skill that we build while we're in school, and you'd be surprised of how much design thinking you use in certain projects, especially when I was taking this elective called Consulting Models and Methods. It was very interesting to see how in some of the feedback or that iteration processes, you use some of those design thinking skills. So I think I've been able to, it has definitely helped me in a lot of ways, especially with just problem solving, thinking creatively, and just being super comfortable with ambiguity, right? And I think I'm able to use some of that mindset, not just for like my electives, but also just basic things like group presentations and also a lot of club work. I love putting presentations together and like the building the decks and things like that, making things, not just look nice, but also how to convey something in the most effective manner. So I think that's some of the ways I've been able to use my design skills. But I think the best way to say it is this, that one thing architecture taught me is to be adaptable, because you constantly have to solve problems on the spot. So I think that's one of the best skills I've been able to like translate and use in my business school as well.
Thank you. All right. Okay, whoever wants to answer this, does the business school offer any scholarships or fellowships? Does the school support students who have to work or to pay for school?
Yeah, so they are currently, I think they actually just revamped the scholarships page. So if you look at, Georgetown MBA scholarships, there is a whole page of scholarships that are available, and they are listed kind of in groups of like, I think it's like maybe where you're from or what industry you're coming from. So you can kind of see what scholarship groups kind of apply to you. They also offer merit-based scholarships. I think that's one of the incentives to applying sooner than later, is that there's more money to be given out at the earlier stages of the application process than later. In terms of fellowships, I know there's Forte, which is for women. There's the consortium, which is for full-time students only and for domestic students only. But those are two fellowships that you can apply to while you're filling out your application for Georgetown. And then I'll put the link to the scholarships page in the chat.
Thanks, Kat. All right, I'll take the next question. How does Georgetown support international students in finding internships or jobs in the US? If I remember correctly, one of the very first event that I attended in person at Georgetown was the orientation for international students. So from day one, they are making you familiar, with the laws for international students, when can you work, where can you work, and etc. on day one. And throughout your entire recruiting journey, your career coach is keeping you focused. Also, it is your responsibility to keep your eye out for employers that specifically can hire and will hire international students. We have an internal database as well showing us which employers have hired most number of international students in the past as well. So that's a great resource to use. And Office of Global Services, which is the department at Georgetown that's in charge of the F1 students, that's the student visa for international students, are constantly in touch with you, letting you know if there has been any changes, any upcoming changes that we're expecting for international students as well. So if you're recruiting for consulting and tech, they will let you know if the company is coming. For example, if Amazon is coming to a campus, there will be literally a line that says all work authorizations are accepted. if there is a only US citizen or permanent residency acceptable jobs, they will say permanent work authorization is required. So they're very good at managing expectations and letting you know which companies will hire international students and then eventually will sponsor for green cards and etc. I hope that answered your question. And then again, the peer advising session. Peer advisors are also very helpful because we have both domestic and international student peer advisors. So you can can talk to international student peer advisors and ask how their experience have been last year for their internships. All right, another interview decided which candidates are interviewed by current students, alum, and admissions deans. Does anyone want to take this one?
Yeah, so that's just all randomized. I think essentially how it works is we put in our times that we're available for interviews, and students who are going to be interviewed, they just select a time slot, and then hopefully we serendipitously get matched up. I know I've interviewed some students. I got interviewed by the Flex program admissions director. It's all a positive experience. It's all going to be good. I don't know if you're asking because you would rather have one or the other, but I think that in general, interviews are just a chance for you to shine, to show your true authentic self, and to show, like what Dulguun was saying, like what is your story? Why do you need an MBA? Why do you can you justify it? And what about Georgetown is it that appeals to you?
And please correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's, difference between you getting interviewed by a student or an alum or an admissions team. I think the percentage of, the value that we bring, I think is the same. Again, you will not go into the decision is not going to be made solely depending on the interview. It is a holistic thing. They evaluate everything. So don't worry if you meet with a student, you'll have a great experience. Don't be nervous if you meet with the admissions team. Everyone will most likely will ask the standardized similar questions, so don't worry at all. Okay, can you speak to anything you wish you had taken advantage of more in your first year and the transition from working to being a student again? This is a good question. Maybe I'll take a shot at it and then someone can maybe follow up. I personally, now I think about it, I was very focused on academics and also recruiting. Recruiting was very, very important to me. And I did consulting recruiting, which is an intense process and starts shortly after the investment banking recruiting kicks off. And I was very stressed about it. I did not go as many pegs or social events as I would like to. Then now in April now I think about it, now I'm thinking I think I could have gone to more. So now my goal has been in the second year, also for the rest of the semester, to go to as many social events as possible, because yes, we're in school, but we're also meeting so many good people and smart people that I would like to keep this network and friendship for as long as I can. And again, so many people from different countries and different parts of America that I would like to get to know as well. So that's one thing I wish I did more, but I will be doing. Luckily, I have one more year, so I'll be focusing on. The transition from working to being a student. I've done full-time grad school before, but I was also working part-time. So this was the very first time since I was, I think, 17 or 18, I've been unemployed for the first time ever in my life. And it's a very unsettling feeling I personally had, because I was like, where's my direct deposit? I don't like being broke. And we're all talking about food, which is so funny. In the MBA program, you'll quickly notice that whenever they say free food, most likely students will show up for the free food. And you think, you're not working. If you have that privilege and you can attend the full-time program without working, you would think you'll have so much free time, just focus on the studies. I genuinely thought I was burnt out from my work and I was like, I'm gonna rest, relax for 2 years. No, you're still working and you have so many things to do. So I think it was a transition and it took me a while to get used to it as well. Do you guys want to add anything?
I guess I just
Sorry.
want to, sorry. So, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I think I just want to add about the first question, like, can you speak to anything you wish you're taken advantage more of? I think for me personally, as I mentioned before, I came in with this mind of exploration, right? So if you're someone who is looking into getting into consulting, I would definitely research more into it. I would have a plan in mind. I would have some target companies in mind and people I would want to talk to. You can still come here and explore, but consulting recruiting happens faster. It usually happens, it happens like November, December, but you have early recruiting happening as well. And you want to make sure that you're networking with the right kind of people, having those quality conversations. So if that is an industry that you want to break into, it'll be good to maybe research about it and learn as much as you can so that when you're here, exactly what to do. And then you can still explore everything you want to on the side as well, but you can just, get better. I think you can just you can just have it more, I think it'll just be more fruitful for you.
Thank you. All right, question for Sophie. Sophie, can you speak to your decision to transition from investment banking to consulting, and what factors impacted your decision to make that transition through McDonough?
Yes, this is a question I get asked a decent amount. Yeah, happy to talk about it. I spent 2 years working in investment banking at a boutique M&A firm in New York, and the type of work we were doing was largely mergers and acquisitions, which I really liked, but the industry coverage was mostly telecom infrastructure, which was like data centers, cell towers, like really, I'm like, all those things are like so fun. But it felt very limiting from an industry perspective. Also, a boutique firm is great, but you have a limited number of employees and you're a little bit scrappier when you go look for deals. So we were always doing pitches. And frankly, I was pretty overworked after 2 years. I was doing like 110-hour a week, and was like frequently sleeping in my office and working on weekends. And that lifestyle was just getting to a point of not being sustainable anymore. And I had seen come through the firm I was at people from consulting. So people almost go the reverse direction. And so I knew the skills were pretty transferable from banking to consulting. And so after 2 years in banking, I knew I wanted to do something else. One, because I wanted to have more like industry coverage. Like I wanted to learn more about other industries and have exposure to those. But I also knew I still wanted to do something like semi-financially related. So I ended up going to an analytics consulting firm in New York where I was able to work across a variety of industries, which I really like. So like think about it as being a generalist, like you can do work across a variety of things. So I was doing like telecom, retail, insurance at one point, financial services. So I got a lot more exposure, which I really liked. And I was still getting to do work with financials because what I was essentially doing was helping clients optimize their forward-looking marketing budgets. So they'd be like, oh, I have like X million or $1 billion. These are pretty big companies to spend on marketing. How should I spend it? So it was kind of the best of both worlds for me at the time. And I think after 3 years at that company, I felt like I kind of hit a saturation point from a growth perspective. And I was thinking about what do I want to do next? And I'd always thought about getting my MBA. And I really thought about it actually when I was in investment banking, because a lot of people go and get their MBA between their analyst and associate years. It's like an auto way for that to get that promotion. And I'd always thought about it, and I put it on the back burner a little bit when I made the move into analytics consulting. And I felt like, okay, this could be the right time to do this. I also really wanted to pivot a little bit in terms of the type of consulting work that I was doing. I wanted to go more into like a strategy route. So figured it was the right time to go get my MBA, and use my MBA as a way to combine pieces of both IB and consulting that I liked. So I really wanted to take that M&A piece from investment banking and the like generalist industry exposure that I was getting from consulting and kind of marry the two. So I'm using my MBA to go intern at a strategy consulting firm this summer. Hopefully we'll end up there, fingers crossed, full time. But I think McDonough specifically just felt like a right fit for me because I knew they had a very strong consulting club and strong like connections with consulting firms. And then frankly, for me, I mean, like I said, I was born and raised here. I did my undergraduate at Georgetown, and I really just felt called to come back here. But whether it's IB or consulting, you can go either direction. And I would say McDonough has resources, whether you want to recruit into one or the other. I know a couple of people who like dipped their toe in both in the beginning of the year, trying to figure out which one was best for them, and then ultimately decided to go one way or the other. But I think McDonough has a ton of great resources for either industry. And I think you can go either way.
Thank you, Sophie. All right, I think we have 2 more questions. Did you do anything to prepare for the program before starting? Have fun, get in the zone, resume prep. And then secondly, questions for Sophie and Megha. How has consulting recruitment experience been? For context, I have a healthcare background and I'm interested in healthcare strategy consulting.
I can talk about the second part of consulting. I can talk about consulting recruiting. For the first question, like I wish I had done more. I worked until like maybe 5 days out before I came to McDonough. Like I really wish if you have the ability to take a little bit of a break, like I don't think I realized how much and how fast everything would hit at school. Like I wish I had given myself like maybe a little bit of breathing room. But yeah, get in the zone. Resume prep you'll be forced to do as a part of like a summer series that you have to, I forget the name of it, but they like send you a link and you basically have to upload your resume into this platform, and you basically have to keep working on it until the system approves it. So you will do resume prep whether you want to or not, because the school requires it. In terms of consulting recruiting, it's an intense process. I think a couple of people have already said that. It starts right when school kicks off. So you will start networking and attending events to meet with practitioners, which is just consulting jargon for anyone who works at a consulting firm. And someone actually just asked me on a call before this. They were like, do you feel like it was a competitive or cutthroat process? And I didn't think so at all. I think it's just a busy process. There's a lot to learn very quickly. You have to be networking frequently. You need to be case prepping frequently. You need to be getting your resume in good shape, cover letter in good shape, behavioral prep. It's a lot. And I'm like, shameless plug for the consulting club. If you join, we have lots of programming in place to help you get ready for your applications, which are due in November, and then interviews usually happen in January. So it can sound intimidating off the bat, but between the club, the career center, peer advisors, there's so many resources that will make sure that you are able to get through the recruiting process. And I will say I'm excited. There's a lot of things I think the consulting club is going to do differently next year from a programming perspective, whether it be to help with casing, like we're going to make it more interactive. We're going to do some things with like consulting day and track a little bit differently, which are 2 great events that we have to help you meet practitioners. So I would just say the advice I give to anyone who's considering going into consulting and they ask what they can do before school starts, my personal advice is, 1, just do some research on firms, like figure out who you're interested in, because you're going to start hearing a lot of names really fast. And it would be nice if you've done a little research and you're like, oh, I know about these firms. I know a little bit about what they do, because you're trying to learn so much at once. Like it's helpful if you have a little bit of a base knowledge of the firms. 2, I would say you don't need to start casing, but I always suggest to people like turn on a YouTube video of a case and just like listen to it in the background, like just start understanding what you would have to do in an interview for a case. And then the third thing, and this is what I would say is the most important piece, and advice that I got actually from a career coach in the career center. His name is Randall Thacker. He's wonderful. He's like, and he doesn't work for the university. He's like paid part-time. He's amazing. You will see his name a lot. People scramble to get appointments with him because he will basically redo your resume. He's amazing. But he told me about crafting your story So for me, I worked in investment banking and then I went to consulting and now I'm getting my MBA, and the goal is to marry the two pieces. But really finding the narrative as to why you're getting your MBA and what you're planning to do with it, and how you kind of ended up here. Like for me, when I was working in investment banking, like I left because for the most part, I was working 110-hour weeks and I was burned out and exhausted, and this was not a sustainable lifestyle. I should not tell that to people when I'm in an interview, why I did that switch into consulting. So it's really having that positive spin on like, I loved my time in investment banking and I really wanted to go into consulting because I wanted industry exposure and I thought it would be a really fun, new, exciting opportunity. So thinking of your story, how are you going to kind of craft it, is something that I wish I had thought about early on, because I felt like I spent the whole first semester kind of like tweaking with my story a little bit, or like why the transition and why am I going now in strategy consulting. So I think if you can get your story down pat, that will be helpful, because people start asking you your like TMAY, which is Georgetown abbreviation for tell me about yourself. Like tell me about yourself and why are you getting into consulting? You will get asked that so frequently throughout the first semester. It's nice if you can have an answer like ready to go. But otherwise, it's a busy process, but you'll all do great. I'm confident.
Thanks, Sophie. I didn't know you worked nearly to the beginning of the semester. If I can add one more thing, if you're joining the full-time program, I would personally suggest that you take a little bit of time off beforehand if you can. One, you have to do like the summer course that we all need to do. So there will be a lot of quant stuff you have to do. In the meantime, try to take some time off, because once the opening term starts, I think it starts on August 4th this year, nonstop 3 weeks, then the semester starts, nonstop 6 weeks, then there is a fall break, but it's your career track week, so you're visiting companies and it's not really a break. Then you hit December. I'm not telling you this to scare you, but if you have successful recruited, if you're recruited in consulting and IB specifically, you will then now prepping for interviews during the holiday season. So you don't really have holidays. You're getting ready for your interviews and you're casing. So you don't have a break to like spring break, really realistically. So if you can, take some time off and get energized and come in strong and energized. And we need that from all the women, especially. Okay, and then I think this is the last one. I noticed that many of you joined the marketing club. I'm curious, are there any particularly helpful activities or resources offered through the club or in classes that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I can. Oh yeah, go ahead,
Go for
Kat.
Megha. No,
Okay.
you
I
do
can
it.
maybe start off and then you can talk a bit more about it. So the marketing club, I think my first experience with the club was their career day, which they did an amazing job at. So I think career day is again a day where you have alumni from different industries come to the school, and they have panels and they can talk to you about what their experience was like working in those firms. And I think that was just a wonderful opportunity to hear straight from some of our alumni on what it was like for them to work there. So they have these initiatives like that, which are, I think, a great way for us to understand how marketing works in these different companies. Other than that, again, there was a marketing track where they also did a bunch of workshops and I think speed dating events and things like that. So overall, I feel like I thought it was a great opportunity to join the club. There's still, I think now because of the transition, they're introducing more events. But yeah, this is what I thought of.
Also, just to add this, it's not something that I've explored yet, but I know that, a lot of these professors are doing research. And so feel free to go talk to the professors, like talk to your marketing professor, find out what it is that their interests are in, or what they're researching and studying, and see if they need an assistant. If you want to kind of be like, oh, that aligns with something that I'm interested in, maybe you could help them out with their research.
Thank you. All right, we are nearing the end here. Do you ladies have any closing words? Anything to add? Sophie, sorry, I kind of hijacked the question section right here.
You're so fine. Go for it.
Do you have any last minute advices or tips?
I'm going to put my email in the chat if any of the other of you guys want to. If anyone feels like they have follow-up questions and want to reach out, I'll drop my email in, and you're welcome to send me an email with any questions as well.
Definitely email Sophie. She's such a badass, if I'm honest. So she's fabulous. You can also reach out to student ambassadors. I think the last thing that I want to add is just that I know I have found being in the MBA program to be so helpful. I've noticed such a change in my confidence, and I think that's so invaluable. So if you are kind of introverted, if you don't feel like business is just kind of like this big monster, this big beast, that's how I felt coming into it. And I feel just so much, so much lighter and so much kind of like I can tackle anything. And so if you are in that boat, you can still get an MBA. It's still absolutely for you.
I'm going to do a shameless plug here for GWiB. We have two of our co-presidents here, and Sophie and I are the VPs of admissions. The business school is so male dominated. You will be in your study teams. You may be the only woman in your study group of 6, or if you're lucky, you'll get another woman. It feels men all around, and it feels great when you have a chance to connect with other women, not only academically, but also the conference that we mentioned earlier that happens in the fall. That event was so life-changing to me. I think I cried twice, like quietly during the panel, because partners from big firms, they were being so vulnerable and telling these personal stories and how they manage their success and personal lives. And it's just great to feel the love and connections from other women when 99% of the time it'll be too many men around. So please join GWiB if you're joining in the fall or whatever in many years, whenever you're joining, please join GWiB, and I hope that we all see you soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.